24th. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to our Government Affairs meeting. My name's Rick Sabat. I'm the Chair of Government Affairs. Thanks for all that came out. Thanks for all who are zooming in. And I'd like to welcome Police Chief Reddy, who's here to talk about some topics that are pretty timely. Again, can you zoom, mute, please? About the flock camera systems, community cameras, and recruitment for the department. We were also supposed to have Deputy Chief Vail with us this morning. He is with us, but virtually. So welcome, Deputy Chief Vail. Hope you're feeling better. And
Thank you.
Ready.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to join you here today. I think it's really, really important that we have the opportunity to hear from the members of the chamber, things that are concerning to you, the things that you're looking for from us. And I want to start today by telling you some of the technology that we're implementing to help address public safety issues in the community, and also about recruitment a little bit as well. One of the first things I wanted to talk about, you may have heard that actually 2 years ago, we implemented a program called the flock system in our and that is a camera, it's a license plate reader, and it takes a pair of motor vehicles and automatically run through the system. If the vehicle is wanted for any reason, then we get an alert at the police station along with the image of the vehicle and the license plate and the geolocation of where it hit in the camera. And then our officers can go out and try to locate the vehicle and, stop it and take whatever actions appropriate. It's also a really incredibly helpful tool to track suspects who've been identified or vehicles been identified as being involved in a range of crimes. They have helped us solve homicides, serious assaults, robberies, and we had a terrible fatal accident on Western Ave in Lynn by the GE last year. You may recall that because of the flock camera, we were able to locate that vehicle with the help of the state police at a parking lot in Boston only an hour after it happened. So it's a really effective tool, and so much so that we went back to Mayor Nicholson and the council recently and asked to increase the allotment. We had 15 and we asked for 10 more, and they did approve funding for 10 more cameras. So we're going to have 10 of these cameras positioned throughout the city, and we work with the folks at Flock to identify strategically where are the most effective places to put them so that, we have really very few gaps in the city. One of the other benefits of this program is that we share all of our access to flock cameras with any other community on the system. So what we try to do is get certainly contiguous communities, but also communities where we know there's a lot of back and forth between people in Lynn, and we if we have one going outbound towards Revere, we maybe see if they can get one coming inbound towards Lynn, and that way we cover vehicles in both directions. And we've sort of had a force multiplier. Instead of us each having to have 2 cameras to cover both directions, we complement each other. So that's really been helpful because we can, again, identify vehicles as they leave the city or where they came before they committed a crime, and it helps us to locate suspects in a much faster way. We are always aware of privacy concerns that people have, and that's why when this system was designed, the image is taken from the rear of the vehicle, so there's no facial recognition issue. We're not taking pictures of people's faces. It's just the license plate in the rear of the vehicle, and they use that for identifying purposes. And the data is only held for 30 days. There's a 30-day retention period, and then it's gone. So as I said, that we started this program about 2 years ago, and we've had tremendous success. One of the frequent things that we get hits on is stolen motor vehicles, and because we become aware where they are in the city before they even know we're looking for them, we're able to position cruisers strategically to make a stop in a way that in 70% of the cases there was no opportunity for pursuit. We were able to stop them without any pursuit at all, which is really helpful to get a felony stop like that without any pursuit. So again, I think it's a force multiplier for us. I think it's been very, very effective. and helping to hold people engaged in criminal activity accountable. And there are certainly cases where we would never be able to identify those suspects if not for technology like this. So we feel very good about the company, very good about the system, and we think it's something that that is going to be a useful tool going forward. And I don't know if anybody has questions along the way. I can talk about some of the other issues I want to bring up, but if there's any questions at any point, just obviously let me know. The next thing I wanted to talk about is what I call community cameras. So we do not currently have any publicly owned or city-owned streaming cameras in the community on public ways. You probably know that many cities, certainly Boston and all the cities surrounding Boston and other urban cities, it's very, very common to have these streaming cameras, community cameras, and it's a way to track the movement of suspect vehicles that are involved in crime. It's a way to monitor areas in live time if there's something significant occurring. It's a way to assess traffic problems, and we think there's a significant need. And whereas the flock cameras are excellent at help us to identify wanted vehicles, and in some cases tracking after the fact, it's only a snapshot image of the rear of the vehicle. Community cameras allow us to monitor a particular area if there's an event going on or an incident occurring, and they also allow us to track the direction, to some extent the speed and the movement of vehicles that are suspected to have been involved in a crime. But not just vehicles, you could see people, you could see anything. So if there's some type of disturbance or disruption occurring in a particular area, they would allow us to monitor that right from inside the station as well. Some of our, peer cities, Chelsea, Lawrence, Everett, other communities, Lowell, they have a significant allotment of these cameras already. And we kind of feel like, this is really an area we need to play catch up with and really, again, be able to really increase our ability to monitor and track activity in the community right from the police station. So we're working on some grant funding right now that will allow us to initiate this program. Again, when we do this, if we get the funding, and we are hopeful, but cautiously hopeful, if we get the funding, whenever we implement the program like this, we're aware of the privacy concerns and the data retention issues, and we'll have policies in place to address those issues. And again, it's been done in many other communities effectively and in a way that those concerns are addressed in a meaningful manner, and we would follow a similar policy approach here. John?
Yeah, so Chris, probably 10, maybe 15 years ago, we were having this very discussion with probably John back then.
Right.
And of course, privacy was the big concern, and we talked about private businesses putting out their own cameras and then feeding it into a central database and whatnot. Are you getting any pushback now on this where it's so prevalent everywhere else?
No, I'm not getting any pushback, and you're exactly right, John. I've actually read the memo that former Chief Suslak wrote when he was a member of the chamber advocating for this as well, but there was no funding source back then. Yeah. We're not really getting pushback. So in terms of having them, we have just seen how effective they are in many other communities, and they're a way to help us to monitor more areas more effectively in real time. They're also a way for us to help, after the fact, track vehicles as they move through the community after committing a crime. Right now, our investigators and sometimes officers, if a crime happens, and this has happened in some of the significant crimes we've had recently, they literally have to go street by street doing a canvass, looking for ring video or businesses that might have video. Then they have to make a request to get the video from them, and they have to take it, they bring it back to the station, and literally piece by piece try to track the movements of these vehicles or get a better view of the suspect vehicle so we can identify it better. And that's, as you can imagine, very time consuming, takes a lot of man hours. By having these cameras in our community strategically placed at key intersections and locations like that, we would be able to do those same things in a much more efficient and timely manner. And then we would hope to have a system that over time would allow us to incorporate cameras from city buildings, or even if some commercial property owners wanted to give us access to them, and have it all to be accessed right from inside the station, so that we can track these these vehicles or this activity in a manner that helps us to save a lot of time, a lot of man hours, and get to a just end in a quicker, more effective manner.
Do you have a database of businesses or even residences that have cameras, or a means for people to even go online and kind of sign up that I have a camera located at this address, where you'll know where cameras are?
We don't. In the past, we did do a database, even just for all the businesses, the commercial retail businesses in the city. And what happened is over time, businesses change hands, or they change alarm companies, or change managers, and that we ran into a staleness issue in that stuff. So that's been our experience in the past. To do what you're talking about now, I think it would be something we'd be really interested in, but actually the challenges of making it, effective and having a database that we can access while also not having those individuals' data be publicly accessible. I'm not sure how that would work, but I think it's something that we can look into. We do have a process where when a crime occurs and we ask people to voluntarily upload cameras, and we'll give them a link, we do that, but we don't have a database of enrollment of cameras. Counselor? Almost every urban community in the state, I would say, probably has it. There are literally hundreds of them in Boston, Chelsea, Everett, Revere, Lowell, Lawrence. Any large city has cameras at strategic locations, oftentimes intersections where there's high traffic or other reasons to have the ability to remotely look at what's occurring and be able to monitor activity, monitor events, or track vehicles who are involved in a crime.
What has been the response? You said it's been effective, but what exactly has been effective? Like, can you give me some things that people have been saying as to they can improve?
I can tell you that, in talking to other law enforcement chiefs, detectives, just friends that I have throughout the law enforcement community, it's a very useful tool to help identify suspects involved in a crime, to remotely monitor traffic at certain times. We all struggle with traffic issues in our communities at certain times of day, to remotely monitor, if there's suddenly a disturbance or other event like that in those specific areas. So it helps you, again, when we're all struggling to have as many personnel as we'd like to have out in the street, whatever we can do to multiply those resources by more effectively targeting their deployment is helpful. And without a doubt, they have helped to identify suspect vehicles that have been involved in violent crimes and a range of other crimes.
And what is the name?
It doesn't have a name. It's because every community, there's the purchasing process where they just acquire cameras, so there's different vendors. I call it a community camera system, but it's not really a particular program or a particular company. It's just having these cameras. Some are fixed, some are pan tilt zoom, some of them are fixed but they can zoom in. So there's a range of features and a range of companies that offer cameras like this that are, we see them on buildings all the time. We see them in private homes, but I think it's really something that we as a community need to make available in these public areas, certain key intersections, so where we have, a strong business presence or residential and business interaction to be most effective.
Who has access to the video? Strictly law enforcement?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends. Like if somebody else had that system and they gave us access to it, obviously they'd have access and we'd have access as well. What I'm talking about acquiring is a system that would be, the city would pay for, and it would be run out of the police department.
And only for law enforcement purposes. So,
Yes, and I want to qualify that by saying that, the Freedom of Information Act gives the option to access lots of things now. There are rules and procedures that have to be followed, but there are certainly cases where that video might be available to someone through a FOIA request.
What if there's a civil suit and or the attorneys or one of them feels like some footage on your video might be beneficial to them pursuant to a court order or something like that, a subpoena request, would it be available under those circumstances?
So one of the things that occurred when we got a body worn cameras, and I, I wasn't anticipating this, is we got significant increase in requests for video, body worn camera video for our responses to crashes, car crashes. And it's really insurance companies. And yeah, they can get access to that. There's a process. We have to redact the video and they have to pay for the video and the time the personnel assigned to that unit take to redact it, but they can get access to it. So I would assume, again, the legalities of that, I can't speak to at this time, but my understanding is it would follow a similar path, that they can get access, but it would, certain personal information might have to be redacted and there'd be a cost that they'd have to pay to get
So
access.
it's a public record and regular FOIA rules apply.
I would think so, yeah.
And you probably don't know this, but, are the cameras gonna be fixed in a certain, look to be viewing a certain area, or are they gonna be rotating around, like up and down the street? Like, that.
So that's one of the decisions we would make if we did get the funding. There are fixed cameras that go in a certain direction and maybe pan out, and then there are pan tilt zoom, which can be rotated and you can zoom in, and we have to decide what works most effective for us. But one of the other things to keep in mind is there is case law that has come down that these cameras have to be targeted in areas where there's public back and forth. We can't just put it outside someone's house and target their house without having a court authorization. So these are the privacy concerns that I know are on people's mind, and we share those concerns, and that's not how we want to use these. We want to use them in public areas to help us to identify, problems that are occurring in our community and take appropriate action with the appropriate amount of resources.
What about the concern that the program sort of expands indefinitely, like you get a certain amount of initial funding, you find the best places to put those resources and you put them there. Then some funding comes down the pipe a little later and you add a few more locations and a few more locations, and the next thing you know, the whole city's under watch.
I think to some extent, having these in public intersections throughout the city would be a good thing. We can't walk down the street now without being filmed in many, many different ways. The issue is whether government's going to control those privacy issues. So I understand that concern, and I share that concern about people's privacy. But being able to monitor traffic, assess the movement of criminals who have recently committed a crime, or to monitor reports of a disturbance or other event in real time to help determine what type of resources are needed, I think is a good thing. So building this out, I think, should be a goal. Along the way, remember, we had, funding for all these things has to go through the mayor and the council. So they're going to have an interest in making sure that we're following appropriate privacy protections and other concerns to make sure the community's not being inappropriately monitored, but appropriately monitored for detective activities I've talked about.
Because the other concern with respect to that is things like people spying on their spouse that they're divorcing, right, or other things like that. It can get personal, not just a vague big brother is watching, but people can abuse the power that they have. So the more intersections are watched, the more likelihood that if it's only these 5 or 6 or 20 high traffic places, there's, I think, less potential for abuse. But once you have something on every sector, now you can start getting untoward behavior, or no, or
Yeah.
just controls to prevent that.
No, I do understand. Right now, we'd love to have 25 to 50 cameras. So that's really going to be very, very limited in a city our size. And individuals can't control the movement of those cameras. And frankly, we don't necessarily share the position that they're facing or something like that ahead of time. They can make a request, but you have to give a reason for that request. And there are FOIA rules that our city has a whole process for, and redaction is a piece of that. So I understand those are the privacy issues that come up a lot in the modern age with, videos and other things like that. But I think this has been put into use effectively and with good protections at many other communities. And I think knowing our elected officials here and how they view the community and protecting the community, I think we can put it in effect in this city with a similar protections for privacy and protections from abuse, while also helping to monitor certain areas in a more effective manner for the reasons I talked about.
Nicole, did you have a question?
Yes, I
Chief,
did. So we have a sober house. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we have a sober home at the intersection.
No, you're cutting out, Nicole.
Yeah. Okay. For now,
Yep.
let me just put, okay. So we have a sober home at the intersection of Waite and Eastern Ave, and there tends to be a lot of accidents there. We have the Ring camera, but would it be possible for us to either give you access or to have one on our home from the police department? We're an all-women's house and we want to keep our women safe.
There's probably literally thousands of Ring cameras throughout the city. So again, what we typically do, we just don't have the ability to process video for every crash. So it's the more serious the event, the more likely we're to ask for the public's help in getting access to video, or we're going to go do a door-to-door canvas and get it then. I don't think we have the ability right now, or we don't currently have it set up for a database where you could voluntarily opt in. And frankly, I'd want to look into that more carefully to make sure that if we did make that available, what are the things we'd have to have in place to make sure that it was effective, that we're not unknowingly sharing people's private, time, or, the privacy concerns there. So to answer your question, if we have a serious crash there, we would probably go and knock on your door and ask to look at the video, and then you could voluntarily let us do that. But we don't currently have an ability to track every or have a database for every Ring camera in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Michael,
other
did you want to
questions?
add to that?
Yeah, sure. This is like deja vu a little bit, because like 5 years ago, we were researching cameras, and the Lynn chamber supported them because there was some incidents near the businesses and they needed them to feel safer. So with retired Chief Suslak, we went to multiple communities that have them. Salem has, I think, like 70 to 80 cameras, maybe even more. We went there, we looked at their system, went to Chelsea, has over 100, Haverhill, Gloucester has them, most communities do. And the questions that have come up with privacy concerns, when we asked them, which the questions are being asked now, there were none. There was only one camera out of all the cameras that needed to be moved because it recorded the entrance to a law office. So the city moved those cameras. Other than that, all the concerns that are being, and all the questions, there really weren't any that were brought up. And they're not monitored live. It's impossible. Say there's like a shooting in the Commons, we could tap into the Commons cameras and then have our tactical response that way and see what's going on. If there's a parade, if there's some type of community event, we could monitor that. They're not monitored live. It's more, if a call comes in, we can access those cameras and better deploy our resources and see what's going on.
Chief, we have none now, not even the mobile ones on stands and.
Yeah, we don't have any that we have in the police department. We have access to the cameras in the schools, and we have access to the cameras in City Hall. But that's it. We don't have access to the whole, like EDIC have some cameras in some of their properties. I believe Lynn Housing Authority has some cameras in some of their properties. We don't have access to those now. And we don't have any in the public areas, like Mike talked about, the Commons or other key intersections. We don't have any of those available. There used to be one up at High Rock Tower, but that hasn't been working. So those are the only ones we've had. But really, for the main point, no.
You see some like I think Walmart's got some in the parking lot. You see them moved around.
Yeah.
Crowd events, where Mike was talking about a parade or something, where you could have them that are on a little trailer and
Right.
set them up on a case by case basis.
It's like Home Depot.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah,
Right.
a lot of stores have them in the park.
So is there gonna be a cap on how many, you said you wanted like 50 of them? Do you foresee wanting more than that, or?
Well, I would certainly want more. When you think about a city our size, 50 is not a lot. But I think we need to start somewhere, learn from it, and then see how we want to build it out. As Mike talked about, and Mike's a great resource for this because he's done some work. We've had one of our officers doing some research. In the communities I mentioned, Lawrence and Lowell, there's literally hundreds of these cameras available. This is not anything new, and they do that effectively. They do it with privacy protections in place, and they do it, with the general public's concerns, both on not overuse, but also having the ability to have one more tool for public safety. But right now, we're talking about a much smaller number just to get started.
And there's no foreseen number of where it would stop. You're just gonna. Is there?
I don't have a number, because we don't have any, and I don't have personal experience on. We had the flock cameras, and we have found that there were some gaps. So we asked for 10 more to help cover those gaps. I would see this being a similar thing. Where's the areas where there's, the highest traffic patterns or the highest need, we'd identify, and that would be our starting point. And then we build it out there based on our experience here in this community. And there'd be an opportunity for input and feedback as well.
Any other questions on cameras? Want to talk a little about recruitment and
Yeah.
some of those challenges?
Yeah, so one of the other issues I wanted to talk about today is really the challenges we're having recruiting young people to have a career in law enforcement. This is not exclusive to Lynn, but I think communities like Lynn are feeling the pinch in a particular way because we have bigger departments, bigger cities, there's a greater need. In the last 4 years, there's been tremendous turnover in personnel in law enforcement. In our own department, we've brought on approximately 100 officers in the last 4 to 5 years. So there's been a big turnover. People have left the field, and younger people are not coming on in the manner that they once were. We all talk about when we took the test, there'd be a line around Lynn English, around Lynn Classical. Last year, when the civil service test was offered and we got the list of residents of Lynn, there were only 80 names on the list. And that's just never enough to sustain the turnover that we have. Because by the time you get through the background process or people just decide they don't want the job, that number gets reduced significantly. So we're trying to be creative and have a big push to encourage young people to consider a career in law enforcement. If you saw our social media recently, you saw that we have had some videos created featuring several of our younger officers showing our diversity. We have Reddy, who's Hispanic. We have Brianna Anderson, who's Black, and we have Brendan Powicki, who's white. And these are all kids from the community who are now serving this community as a career in law enforcement. And we want to emphasize that and show that we want more of that, more of the people who represent who we are as a community. And also talk about how this career is really a noble one, and it's an opportunity to serve your community in a truly meaningful way, keeping people safe, helping people feel good about their neighborhoods, about their business areas, helping to have events where people can come together and feel safe. That's what police officers do, and it's really important that they have a role in that. So what we've done is try to reach out further. We have reached out to the faith-based community to encourage their members of their congregations to consider this, taking the exam. We've reached out to local colleges, particularly to their criminal justice programs. We're reaching out to the business community. We've reached out to the Latino Business Association, the Chamber, and others to try to spread the word as much as possible. The exam sign up is this month. Registration regular registration closes January 16th. And then late registration, which is an additional fee, closes January 30th. The exam is scheduled to take place in March. So we really want young people to, even if you're not sure, think about taking that exam and just giving yourself an opportunity. We have I think, a really competitive contract for our officers, and that's going to be highlighted on a flyer I'll show and share with your members. Obviously a guaranteed pension, health benefits, and a good salary structure, education incentives, EMT incentives. These are a way for young people to have a career and have a good income as well, while also really doing important, meaningful work. But it's concerning, not just here in Lynn. I talked to a lot of other chiefs. It's very, very concerning that young people are reluctant to enter this career, and I think there's a number of reasons. I think there's some of the national dialogue that we've experienced has caused people to think that they don't want to be in a position in a police officer because of all of the, you see these protests and the whole host of them and the impact of that, or the other concerns. I think people just look at it differently. I think, people just maybe think they can never do that because they have an idea about it, but really there's just not one way to be a police officer. We have SROs, we have people working in traffic, we have people on patrol, we have people engaged in community events and planning community events. We have, people working in a range of special units, and technical skills are needed. So, traditionally, police jobs were drawn from the criminal justice field, but we have needs far beyond that. So I would say if your background is business, it's social work, mental health, if it's anything and just have an interest in working in your community, we want you to take the test and think about coming and joining us because we really need you.
Now, do you find that most of the recruits that you get are former military? Because I think back of like my former students at Tech who are now police officers, and I think back and the majority of them went into the service after high school.
Not most. We do get a fair number of former military, but it's not the majority. But I think of those who do go in the military, a career in fields like law enforcement is one that they're naturally drawn to because they have that service part of their personality. So it's not a majority, but we do get a fair number of former military people.
And are they incentivized at all?
So yeah, so there are hiring incentives for veterans get points on the exam and on the promotional exams, and the disabled veterans get preferential hiring. So there are incentives for military, former military.
What's the basic requirement for somebody to apply?
They have to be, I believe, 19 to sign up to take the test, and then they have to be, I think, 21 when they actually come on. Mike, is it 21 when they come on the job now?
Yes, they can take the test when they're younger.
That's the basic requirement.
They have to be
High school diploma.
high school diploma or GED or?
Yeah, GED would qualify them. High school diploma, GED, but you're not required to have college. The city has a really generous package. It's been negotiated over the years that there's tuition reimbursement if you want to continue your education, and then there are pay incentives, depending on which degree level you achieve.
And there's no requirement to be a Lynn resident to be a Lynn police officer.
No, but because we're a civil service department, we hire local residents first. So they would get preference. And then when we exhaust that list, and for the last several years, we've exhausted the resident list every time. And when I come on, and probably even up to probably 7 or 8, 9 years ago, we never exhausted the local resident list. We always were able to hire just from that, but that's not the case. In the last 5 years at least, every single time we've gone into hiring, and within the year, we've had to go to the non-resident list as well. So
I was gonna say, it makes me feel good to see Karen Hogan and Fred that you mentioned, people that I know from growing up being police officers right now. It actually makes me happy to see those people in the uniforms.
Yeah.
I feel like they know where we come from. They understand a
Right.
certain area of the community that maybe other police officers might not understand. So I'm really happy to see those young people in uniform, and hopefully they're having a good experience being adopted into the culture of the police department. So I wanted to know, what are some of the marketing strategies you're using to reach out to a younger demographic?
So, first of all, it's just direct, like we work with Arthur Akers at the College Application Education Project. We do career fairs, not only at North Shore Community College and Salem State, and we'll go anywhere in local colleges. We've also done them in the high schools to try to get them interested even before they leave high school, because it won't be long before they can take that test. We use the local media, that to try to get the word out, to encourage them to that. And frankly, that's what these videos that we've created. We did that because we learned that young people, they get their news sources through YouTube, Instagram, and other social media. And so we had a media expert who said to reach them, you have to do things like these videos. So it's a 30-second video, but we've all gone on and either try to do a YouTube or whatever we do. And there's always that commercial at the beginning where you can skip after 5 seconds. Well, that's what these will be doing that too. And they're geo-coded to target people in this area. So we do have an ad buy to connect those videos to young people on those media platforms. We've learned that's the best way to reach them directly.
I've seen them on Instagram.
Yeah.
They're fabulous. The
Good.
3 offices did such a good job.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Rick Connick really did a lot of work coordinating with the communications company, Kelly from Boston, and the officers I agree, they did a great job. So.
Yeah.
But even like the career fairs at the high schools.
Mm.
And have younger officers who went to school there. I know Tech's got one.
Yeah.
Coming up, I think on April 4th, and, set up a little table, it's a few hours, have a couple of officers. who are
Exactly.
Tech grads.
And I think this is an area we're going to continue try to learn. Like, this is the first time we've done this video, social media we're going to learn some things. Like everything else, we're going to try and get better and better at it, and try and continue to stay informed on what's the best way to reach young people. They're not buying the local Boston Globe daily item and reading that. It's how they get their news and their information is different from how most of us grew up. So we have to go to those platforms and meet them there.
Did I see something that former Chief Carpenter, now the sheriff, they started at 19, and they can start in law enforcement there and then work potentially up into becoming a police officer?
Yeah, so Sheriff Carpenter's had similar challenges with hiring as well. And he has now, I believe, lowered his age when you can apply and begin a career as a corrections officer with the Essex County Sheriff's to 18. I'm check that, but I believe he lowered to that too, again, to reach out to more people. It's a separate career track, but a lot of people who do go to work for the Sheriff's Department then at some point take the civil service exam to get hired as a police officer in a different community. It's different career tracks. You can't automatically go from one to the other. You still have to take the test.
How many officers do we have on the force now?
180 currently. We just had some that are about to get sworn, and it'll increase it to 188. But literally, we're losing 5 before the end of the month to retirements, and the other thing that we lose people to, we're in competition. So people go to the state police, or sometimes they get hired on a non-resident list from another community, and especially if they are a resident list, if they live in a different community, and they might go work somewhere else. So I talked about the turnover and how we're losing people. So we're funded for 199 officers, and I truly believe as the city has grown and the demands for officers, we want more SROs. We have tremendous traffic concerns. We have a range of crime concerns, and that requires investigators. We need to have more officers, but right now we're focused on trying to fill the positions that we have, and it's a significant challenge. So I would just ask everyone out there, whatever you can do to spread the word or encourage young people. And when I say young people, we've had officers come on into their late 30s and 40s as well. But obviously, if you can come on this job when you're in your 20s or early 30s, you can get a full career and a full pension and really be able to do a whole lot of different job functions and job duties and have a great experience. So I'd ask you to share the word and spread the word to help us out. Thank you.
I have to say, as a Lynn resident, I mean, as a kid growing up here, did you ever think you'd be the chief of police? I think it's
No.
pretty awesome.
Thank you, I appreciate that. No, I honestly, I didn't. I didn't, and
Yeah.
it was only a few years ago when Chief McGarry decided that he was gonna retire, and I thought, you know what, I think I'd like to give it a shot, and so it worked out. So I'm
Did you
grateful
always
for it.
want to be a police officer?
I always wanted to be a police officer,
Mhm.
and I loved my career.
Yeah.
And like everyone else, I had highs and lows. But I think that happens in lots of careers, and particularly in policing. And we learned a lot to try to help our officers go through those highs and lows in a healthier way, and we continue to work in that area. But I always loved my career as a police officer. I did not envision becoming.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And a family of public safety officers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm grateful.
Must have been something on the, in the water. when you
Yeah,
first
mom was
moved,
mom was quite the cheerleader.
Any other questions for the chief? Deputy Chief Vail, thank you for coming on with us. Anybody on Zoom have any questions? I would like to recognize, Council at Large Nicole McLean, who's joined us, and, newly sworn in Ward 4 Councilor Natasha Medjugorje. Thank you for coming. Thank you again, Chief. Thank you for everyone coming. Next month is, our meeting is February 14th, so Valentine's Day. We'll have the state auditor, Diana DeZoglia. She's quite an interesting elected official. And will definitely keep you awake. She's we had a meeting in her office a few weeks back, and it was a lot of fun meeting with her. So, and she's agreed to join us on Valentine's Day. So hopefully maybe we can reach out to Flowers by Lorraine,
I'll
one
have
of our
to-
chamber members, to get some flowers for on Valentine's
idea.
Day. But have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.